made it to the garage and you didn't have to find parking on the street like I did. All you did was get on your computer like an internet weirdo, click around, beep bop, and you're here, which is good because I'm Wags with Ironman 4x4 and you need help installing your 2-inch foam cell pro suspension lift for your Jeep. Now we've got a Rubicon JLU. It's really straightforward. It's just shocks, coils, and a steering dampener. There's a couple little shortcuts that I can help you with, but you know, our relationship has kind of got me thinking, friendship is a two-way street, and I feel like I'm doing all the heavy lifting here. So why don't you do all of us a favor, click that bell down below. We'll confuse my friend that works at Skynet called, I think his name's Algorithm. Let's confuse him. Let's click that bell. I will wait. Whoa, thank you. That sounded just like the old Taco Bell. Remember that 90s Taco Bell commercial? Gosh, I wish they'd bring that back. Now I'm getting hungry. I might go get some for me. I'll be back. Well, apparently they won't let me go to Taco Bell because they say I'm, quote, behind schedule and burning daylight and no one wants to hear that I eat my own dandruff and don't own a toothbrush. So let's just get back to the Jeep install. So get your Jeep put in park, set your e-brake, chock your rear tires. I'm gonna show you how to jack the front of the truck up and other things. Jeeps have a solid front axle. And the front diff of the pumpkin isn't centered. It's off over on the driver's side. So you might be going, well, where the heck do I jack this thing up from? If you go dead center on the axle housing, right there, that'll do the trick. And with the Jeep jacked up, you want to support it under the frame rail. So get your big jack stands, and we'll put it right there. That kind of captures it. It's not going anywhere. We want to make sure we leave our front axle supported with our floor jack, because if you just leave your front axle in full droop, it puts a ton of tension on your upper and lower shock bolts. You kind of want to find that happy medium point. You don't want it under compression, and you don't want it at full droop. All right, wheels and tires are off. I'm going to get this inner fender liner out so we can get access to the top of our shock. Just makes things really, really easy. You're going to have 7 of these plastic clips. Make sure when you're using your removal tool, get it all the way down as far as it'll go. Then you'll pop them out, you won't break them. 7 of those guys, and we got 3 of these 10 mil bolts. Perfect. This outer trim piece has these little plastic rivets that hold everything together. When you go to take your inner fender liner out, you actually have to push the liner back. There's a hole in it, so it just kind of is capped over. So you just push it up and back. See that? Pops out. Pull that out, set it aside. Now with that liner out, you can actually access this top shock bolt, and it's a 18 millimeter socket. For the lower shock bolt, grab an 18, and then we're going to hitch 2 wrenches together. We'll break this nut loose. There we go. And then I can hit this with the gun. Cool. Pop our bolt out. And if you're forgetful like me when it comes to hardware, swing your shock out, put the hardware in the way it came out, just finger tight, and then when you're like, dude, how the heck does this go back together? You can just look down and go, oh yeah. Driver's side shock's out, we'll go do the same thing on the passenger side. All right, now before we pull our coils out, you don't want to over droop the front of your Jeep and stretch your ABS and your brake line. So I like to pull the bracket off the frame and the bracket down here on the front link. Grab a 10 mil socket, we'll pull this top bracket off. Slide that guy out of the way. Tuck the bolt right back there so we know where it goes. And we'll get the bottom bracket off the lower link. It's a 15 millimeter socket. And same thing on the passenger side. And there's one more step before we droop our front axle to pull our coils out, and that is we got to unhook the sway bar links, and I like to unhook them at the axle. So grab an 18 socket and an 18 wrench. And do the passenger side also. ABS and brake line brackets are undone. Now there's one more wire that we need to unhook, and that is our front diff lock wire. So if you kind of pull this guy out of the way, right down here at the base on the driver's side of your differential, there's a plastic clip. Take a pick, slide it out. It actually pops out pretty easy. That white plastic clip's out, then take your pick and get up under the middle part, just like that. It's really hard to see, but if you get up in there, and then it just slides right out. See that little tine right there? Okay, so that's disconnected. Now grab your clip removal tool, and we'll get in behind here, pop that out, and that's free. Now you will not tear it up when you're lowering your front axle. All right, you've got another wire over here on the passenger side, same kind of setup as the driver's side. So we'll get that same clip, depress it, look at that. And then grab your removal tool. We'll get in behind this guy. Sometimes you don't even need a tool. It'll just slide right out. Got that guy. And then we will undo this guy off of our upper link. Cool. All right, we're clear and free and good to lower down. So I'm gonna go real slow with my floor jack. And we're watching those brake lines and that ABS wire. And everything is hanging. And you can see how the coil is pulling right out of the lower mount, out of that isolator. This will just slide out just like that. Set that aside. And on the passenger side, you might have to show the axle a little love, so kind of push down on it a bit. And the idea here is just want to sneak that guy out. Most vehicles have a bit of a lean to them, especially on the driver's side, because usually the gas tank's on that side too. So Ironman 4x4 accommodated that with a little extra height on the driver's side coil. Now the coils are both marked. The driver's side one says DS, obviously for driver's side. This is where we got a little lost in translation here for the Americas. The passenger coil says NS. That stands for near side, which is just the way Australians call it, passenger side. So if you see this, don't get confused. NS is passenger, DS is driver. All right, let's get this front coil in. And if you need to push down on your axle, just keep an eye on your diff breather line. We don't want to pop that guy off. So we will start at the top. And this top isolator, it's perfectly round, so it doesn't matter how the top of that pigtail fits in. It's just gonna pop in there. And then what we'll do is we'll just set it back down on the lower isolator. That coil fits right in there. Now when you go to fit that passenger side coil in, you might need to jack up your driver's side of your axle, because when you lift the driver's side, it actually causes the passenger side to droop, give you as much clearance as you can to get that coil in. All right, we'll fit this coil in here. I like to go in from the front, get the sway bar link out of the way. That guy just drops right in that easy. Cool. We'll go to the driver's side. We'll lower our jack. It will lift the passenger side of the axle back up, and we'll get this seated. All right, we got our driver and our passenger side coil in. Now we need to seat them correctly. So get your floor jack underneath the center of your axle. We'll go slow, start to add a little preload in there. We'll get everything adjusted so that our pigtails line up on our lower isolator and our upper isolator. All right, we've got our Ironman Foam Cell Pro front shock. One thing not to forget, Foam Cell Pros don't have a high pressure nitrogen charge in them. So if your shock shows up compressed like that, we didn't send you one that's too short. You just need to let it hang and it'll extend out. So we'll line it correctly You can see here that our mount is off center to accommodate for better stability and positioning. So we'll start with the top. Here's your top bushing mount. That'll slide up right in there. Bolt back in. Get it finger tight. Cool. And then we'll let it hang and kind of pull down on it a little bit. All right, grab my bottom shock bolt, run that through there, spin the nut on the back. Very cool. And we will go do the same thing over on the passenger side. All right, let's get our brackets put back on. This was a 15. And we'll grab our top bracket. It's a 10mm socket, and it's got a little locating tab that goes right in there. Get that started. Go nice and easy. Perfect. Let's get our diff lock plug clipped back in. Pressed in like that. All right, we gotta hook up our sway bar in links. Make it easy on yourself and jack the axle until the bracket is at the same height as your bolt. And we'll go do the passenger side, get it all fit up. Grab yourself your 18, socket and wrench. Now we're in the buttoning it up phase, so let's grab the fender liners, get those bad boys tucked back in, and we'll be on our way to victory. You want to start with the 3 holes in the back. Those need to fit up and over. Plug and play. Whee! Cool. Same thing on the passenger side, and then we'll attack our steering dampener. Hey, if I was ever trapped and I couldn't communicate, I would use Morse code to tell you this. And that translates roughly, it's time to install the steering dampener. All right, so your Ironman 4x4 foam cell pro kit comes with a foam cell steering dampener. Grab an 18mm socket, we'll pull that bolt and that bolt. That's really it, it's super straightforward. Pop out the old one, put the new one in, lock it down. Cool. And we'll get the other side, but this nut is on a carriage bolt, so you want to push from the back side to keep it seated in the mount. All right, grab your steering dampener, and you're going to put the shock body side on the outboard mount, just like this. Kind of fit it up like that. Slides in, carriage bolt drops down from the top. Grab your other bolt, stretch this guy out. It can be a little tough because it's packed full of damps. All right, that goes right there. Grab your net plate. Get that started. Finger tight. Also, a little word of advice. When you go to spin this bolt back down, don't go crazy with your impact because you don't want this thing to spin around and break or slip off. So go slow, and then you can lock it down with a wrench. This one, though, we can get locked down. Remember, push down on the head of that bolt. This one, we will go slow. Let's go get our rear in gear, or get the gear on the rear. All right, guys, for the back of the Jeep, grab your floor jack. Make sure you chock your front wheels, because, you know, safety first. And then I'm going to use a block here, and I'm going to jack from underneath the pumpkin, because I want to get as much height as I can. Once we get the back of the Jeep up, we're going to put our jack stands under the frame, and I want to give myself enough room to droop the rear axle so we can get those coils out and the new ones in. All right, grab your jack stand, and we are going to put it right under there. So your gas tank's on the passenger side. So just make sure you've got proper alignment so you don't pinch your skid plate. So Jeep made it easy, and everything on this Jeep is basically an 18. So put your socket on there and we'll get the top bolt out. All right, get a wrench on the back. So just like the front, because it's a solid axle, the rear has basically the same stuff. We'll just get started with pulling our brackets off. Same size, 10 mil, just like the front. We'll pull this bracket off here. It's a 13 millimeter. Now we go to droop that rear axle. Everything's free. Do the same thing on the passenger side. All right, and don't forget to pull this connector right here. There we go. And it's on this sleeve that slides up and down, so we can let that hang. All right, there's 18 on the nut side and 18 on the bolt side. All right, let's go get the driver's side. All right, we'll get this driver's side sway bar undone. All right, everything's unhooked except for our panhard, but I wanted to show you, you can actually pull your stock coils out without dropping the panhard bar. All right, so when you take your rear coils out, there's this rubber isolator that fits up in the top of the perch. So you've got kind of a tight turn with the pigtail at the top and a slightly bigger turn at the bottom to fit into the lower isolator. So you don't want to get too confused. You want to make sure you know top from the bottom. Also, this rubber isolator has this locating nub. So when you go to put this all back in, you have to basically get this on top of the Ironman coil and then line it up perfectly. So yeah, good luck. It also makes it a lot easier to get the Ironman taller coils in if we pull our panhard bar. So grab a 21 socket and we will get this guy zipped out. All right, so we've got our Ironman 4x4 rear coils, and again, you know, you got the DS and the NS. DS is driver, NS is passenger. You take the coil, you flip it upside down so the writing's upside down, and that is the top of the coil. We'll take our isolator, we'll put it right there like that. All right, so we're gonna fit our new coil in between the sway bar and the axle. As we lift up, what was nice is our driver's side upper isolator stayed in place. So we'll just get that guy tucked in there, and then we've got room to get it on the lower perch. And we'll see if we can get this, look at that, right over. And that fits there. So we're gonna leave this kind of hang loose for now because we gotta go do the passenger side. And again, it's nice if you have a friend, but if you don't, you just have to jack up a little bit, hold, check everything, come back, jack up a little bit more, kind of back and forth. You really want to make sure the pigtails are seated on the isolators in the right position. Just like the driver's side, we want to get this all aligned up, and then we'll get the coils in. Then we'll move on to our shocks. All right, our Ironman coils are in. We've supported the rear axle with the floor jack. It's just, everything's just kind of sitting snug. Now let's get our rear shocks hung. We'll just get them in there. Spin those down, hand tight. I'll go to the other side. All right, now that we've got the top of the shocks finger tight in there, we're gonna start lifting up that rear axle. There we go. And now we can swing that sway bar moved up out of the way. That shock bolt there. Leave that loose and go to the other side. All right, let's get that panhard bar tightened back in there. And it's probably not gonna line up, so grab yourself a screwdriver or a drift or locating pin and kind of want to wiggle it in because we want to push the back of the axle over. If you're having trouble getting your panhard back in, a little trick I like to use if I'm by myself, take a ratchet strap, hook it to the top of the mount on this side, and then over to the top of the mount on your passenger side. Ratchet it down, it'll line it right up. It's basically like making a come along out of a ratchet strap. Works pretty good. All right, let's get our sway bar button back on. Grab an 18 wrench, an 18 socket. Grab a 13 millimeter socket and we'll get this bottom ABS brake line bracket cinched down. Switch over to a 10 mil socket and we'll get the frame side of that done. All right, let's get this plugged back in on our diff over on the passenger side. That snaps in like that. All right, so we are almost done with our suspension install. We're gonna get our wheels and tires spun back on. We'll lower the Jeep down and then we'll tighten our upper and lower shock bolts so we don't twist those bushings. That's it. Go roll the truck around, bounce it out, check all your torque specs after you put 100 miles on it. And brother, you're good to go. All right, let's tighten up this lower shock bolt. Put an 18 on the bolt head, an 18 socket on the nut. That's done. And then we'll also tighten up the top of the shock bolt. It's also an 18. All right, we're done. Ironman 4x4, foam cell pro suspension lift on our Jeep Rubicon JLU. Thank you for the help. That went awesome. But you know what? You said something earlier, and you're right. Something is still wrong with this Jeep, and I can't put my finger on it. Like, what is the problem here? No, that tastes normal. Ooh, I got it. I know what's wrong. We can fix this. Hang on.